Hi everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do a book review of Hogfather, written by Terry Pratchett. This is a fantasy novel first published in 1996. It is the 20th Discworld novel and the 4th novel set within the Death character subseries. So first of all, what is the Discworld itself? It is, as the name might suggest, a flat, round, disc-shaped world which logically or not rests on the back of 4 very large elephants which by themselves stand on the back of a very large world turtle called a greater chewing, which swims through space as though it was water. Now, this concept sounds really strange and absurd, and indeed it is, but there is a reason for that. For one thing, it helps create the magic system and indeed creates many of the characters, because a world this absurd and this insane essentially can only exist basically because of a very low probability. It's remote in all the universe that something like this could technically exist. Therefore, the walls of reality around Greater Chewing and the elephants and the disc are essentially weaker, the weaker walls, and therefore the Discworld is allowed to exist, and other things are allowed to exist because of this weakness of reality. One of these is belief. In the Discworld, if enough people believe passionately enough in something, it can create an actual physical substance, and so belief actually does create what you believe in. Okay, that is why the character of Death exists, yes. So there is a 7-foot tall skeleton with a black robe and the scythe and all, does indeed go around collecting the souls of the dearly departed after they die. Also, other interesting characters exist as well, like the Soul Cake Duck, Old Man Trouble, which is a character that you don't want to bump into, and the Hogfather. Now, the book starts off very close to Hogswatch, in other words Christmas. It is a time where people should be jolly, there should be holly above your head, and there should be other things ending in ollie, as one particular character points out. Now, this is the time when the Hogfather, Father Christmas for all intents and purposes, should be making his round, when he is extremely efficient on one night, with a speedy whizzing around all the different homes in the world. And it is pointed out, and people do comment on the fact that he's like, he's a remarkably good driver of his sleigh, that he can get around the whole world and not crash and things. Anyway, that's a different discussion. And one particular character called Susan Stowe Hellist, who is a governess in a well-to-do family of some fairly posh children, and also happens to be the granddaughter of Death. Yes, Death had a adopted daughter years ago, and she sadly died, but she did get married and had what became Susan. Susan one night is dealing with her, her charges as a governess. She happens to notice and hear the Hogfather on the roof, so she watches the Hogfather come down the roof. However, things don't exactly go according to plan, because the person in the big red robe isn't exactly who she expects, and it doesn't cheer her up. It actually kind of annoys her really badly. In fact, that is because her grandfather, Death, has taken on a second job, temporarily or not, nobody's entirely sure. It's a little bit complicated and a little bit strange, but it works out really well when you have Death wearing different clothing, let's say. If you haven't figured out the connection, then I'm not going to point it out, but it's fairly obvious, frankly. I mean, the cover of this particular edition should point out what Death's second job is in relation to what I just said. And things start spiraling outwards and in a very strange way. And another important part of the plot is there is a very strange character who is an assassin called Tea Time. He is given a commission, or in other words paid, to assassinate somebody in a very strange and unusual manner, and he starts planning it. He hires a criminal gang, and they go basically to a strange location and try to commit a very peculiar crime, which, considering this is a Discworld and absurdity exists everywhere, that's quite an achievement, frankly, to achieve a very strange crime. But he's trying to pull it off, and yes, events start spiraling outwards, and the plot goes in there. I don't want to spoil anything else, but that's it as spoiler free as I can make it. And it's a really fun and interesting plot with great characters, and the characters is where I'm going to talk about next, and where the plot goes next, because the characters make this book work so well. Basically, it's Death and Susan. The two of them are so incredibly well written in the book. You've got Death, who is, the harbinger of souls from, your death until wherever they see fit that they belong. He sees people at their last, but he's fascinated by people, the psychology and what people believe in. He loves it. He loves people. He also loves cats, by the way. And he's just fascinated by it, and he's trying to investigate the world around him. And combine that with Susan, she knows that this exists. She knows that her grandfather is deaf. And she knows that the world he inhabits does exist, that he can be everywhere seemingly at once, because he can step through the moments between time. He doesn't pause time, he just walks between time as such. She also has this ability. She's a very unusual and strange character, a brilliant character. Their psychologies and personalities both clash and also complement each other really well. They rub along really well in the end, although they can argue, but they do get on. I mean, after all, it's family, and they are a brilliant combination of characters. And there is another brilliant section of characters that are supporting them, like, of course, Albert, which is Death's manservant, former very powerful wizard who almost died and basically became his manservant rather than dying. And Albert has got a rather strange role, which involves eating lots of pork pies and a turnip on a frequent basis in the book, who is a brilliant character who goes well. You've got the Death of Rats and the Raven, which doesn't do the N-word, by the way, the Nevermore. They are a brilliant combination that work well with Susan and indeed Death and other characters. And then you've got Tea Time, who is the assassin, who is a very strange and freakish character, and his criminal gang that he employs, the main leader of whom is called Medium Dave. When he became a criminal, other nicknames with Dave were taken up: Big Dave, Dangerous Dave, Deadly Dave. So he settled on Medium Dave as his criminal nickname, as you do. They are a brilliant combination of psychologies and the other gang members, and all these psychologies and the way they interact is brilliant by the end of the novel. It's something that I think is just fantastic, and I love to pieces in this book. And this is a very well loved Discworld novel. And one of the other things that people love about this novel is just the setting and the way that the atmosphere is created, because this is obviously Hogwarts or Christmas environment. I mean, this review, unless something goes wrong, should be uploaded very close to Christmas. In fact, I hope that's the intention. And you get that distinct impression that it's a time for people to be happy and to be with family and friends, and to be generous and try not to think about themselves all the time and think about others. And it's just that atmosphere of the sort of the found family, lost family, and actual family is a brilliant combination which works extremely well. You have the familiar locations like Walkport, which is basically the version of Discworld London, which is brilliant, along with multiple other locations like Death's Cottage, which is strange but also works extremely well. Many other locations, all of which just work somehow. Every location works with their characters, especially a very strange tower, let's say. I don't want to say anything more about it, but the tower, which is a bit odd, and that works well within the confines of this particular novel. And all these things combine into what I think is an amazing book and make some amazing points. One of which is the idea of obviously family and community and just being together when you need it. Family is more than just genetics, it's more than just blood. Family is something greater than that. I mean, that is what people obviously try to achieve often at Christmas time, where you try to be with your family, your neevies and deebies. We don't always achieve it, especially in the current climate, but we try what we can, and hopefully that brings us together rather than breaking us apart. And that is what the novel is sort of also discussing. Of course, certain characters are indeed not keen on family and not keen on being together. Like quite happy, like Teton Fangler is keen on breaking people apart, or in his case, literally killing them. I mean, he's an assassin after all. So it's a bit of a strange combination, but it works extremely well. And this is all to do with trust and honesty, because obviously the book is to do with Hogwarts, where trust, honesty, and being true to yourself and true to others around you at Christmas time is frankly important. It discusses it in a really interesting manner and a really quite personal manner. You really do get quite involved in the characters in the book, specifically Death and Susan, because they are both amazing characters, but there are many others. I mean, for instance, the Wizards, by the way, from Unseen University, which have been featured in all books, do make an appearance. They are, of course, essentially the comedy sort of crux of this particular book. Although one of the guards, Nobby, also appears from the City Watch books briefly and plays a little cameo, and it's really brilliant. So overall, the combination of characters, personalities, plotline and world building is frankly all fantastic and comes together to create what I think, and many other people think, is a truly classic Discworld novel that works extremely well and just proves that Pratchett is phenomenal at writing anything, and he's just a phenomenal writer. And with that, I will just say that I would recommend The Hogfather to pretty much everybody. It's one of the few books where I actually would say you could almost read this almost completely standalone from almost any other Discworld novel. It does benefit maybe if you've read a few Discworld novels. I mean, all Discworld novels benefit from reading previous novels, because you'll know little bits about the world and certain character development and such, but overall it's not major to you. You can read this almost totally independently, and it's well worth it if you haven't read anything else. I mean, if your only interest in Discworld is reading this, that's perfectly valid. I wouldn't say a word against it, because it's a brilliant novel and I would highly recommend it. And with that said, that is it for this video. So a link to this book on Goodreads can be found in the description box below. As always, all my social media links can be found down below as well. If you have read this or you'd like to read it and you'd like to talk about it, then please leave a comment and we can have a talk. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another time. Bye for now.